So two things come into play during this whole article of negotiation: knowledge and also technique. Technique is so important. So knowledge, like I said earlier, the marketplace, you need to be knowledgeable about that particular company. And if there's any historical salary data that you can get for that company, you need to get that. Also, you need to know your value. How many of you know how much you're worth? Wow. Nobody? No. How much you're worth to an employer? Nobody? Okay. You do?
Yes.
Yay! How much are you worth?
$55,000.
How much are you worth?
At least $55,000.
And how did you come to that conclusion?
Based upon my salesmanship skills I illustrated at my last internship, I can transfer that into whether it be multi-vehicle I just interviewed with yesterday. And I want to talk about their base commission. And that was the point that I wanted to make, was to ask for more commission percentage compared to asking for a base salary upgrade.
Okay, great. I will give you probably a little bit less than what you asked me for, just because I like how you approached that. But spot on. And he might not know much more than what he shared with us, and I'm not picking on you at all. But did everyone hear how he presented his case? Were you able to hear it?
Can you repeat it, LaTanya?
I'm sorry?
Will you repeat it? Just so.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Can you just stand up and repeat it, just trying to do it verbatim?
How did I know I would do that?
Okay, so you're asking me for $55,000, is that right?
Yes.
And how did you arrive at that number?
I took into consideration their base salary of $35, and based upon the fact that that was what I believe my talent requires, but from the realization that I'm not going to get $55,000 for the position. So instead I wanted to ask for other benefits, whether it be go along with my 401k, go along with vision or dental. Like, I'm not going to get a company car being in a beginning entry position, but I want to ask for other upgrades. So as I said, a bigger commission percentage. So,
Yep, absolutely. And they might tell him no, but you know what? They probably wouldn't. They probably entertain a lot of what he said. Because a lot of times, and that's a good point, that base salary, it might be fixed. And there's some companies, they won't waste your time. They'll tell you, you know what, 43.5, that's, and I will tell you, that's all that we can offer you. I'm not trying to play games with you. This is a fair salary, and that's all that we have. So then what do if your goal is 50? Well, like he said, you know, you talk about things like, are there some commissions, some other incentives, are there, you know, some other perks, company car, if you're moving out of the area, even if you're moving to Dallas from Fort Worth, will they be able to assist you with relocating? You might have a lease here in Fort Worth, and you know, maybe they'll buy you out of that lease. If you're moving outside of DFW, they might provide you with a stipend, a lump sum stipend to help you to get settled in your new city. All those things don't impact your base pay, but those are things that the company might be able to write off and justify because they would just be year one expenses. It's not something that they would have to carry year to year. Okay, so that was a really good response to that. Okay, so I already talked a little bit about this. You really need to work with your career center. They can talk to you about some of the tools out there, some of the different online resources that you can access so that you can learn a little bit more about what companies are paying entry-level hires. And also, you know, what's the company's reputation for negotiations? You know, a lot of times you might have all of this technique down and you might be very confident, but if this company doesn't have a reputation in negotiating, then you need to know that. All right, so I already kind of talked to you about this, so I'm just going to slide through or go through these slides. Talking about salary, I put this slide in there because this is really important. Again, when you're going through and applying for positions, a lot of times the salaries are not posted. I know when jobs are posted on Frog Jobs, unless the employer has been very explicit about, the salary, it's not on there. So you have no idea what they're going to pay. If you ask a recruiter, let's say you go to the career fair and you walk up to the booth and you ask one of the recruiters, so what's the starting pay for these positions? You're immediately going into the no pile because you haven't won them over. It's sort of like, hey, I'm LaTanya, let's get married. Oh, I don't know you yet. I don't know if I want to marry you and make a lifetime commitment with you. And you're already talking marriage. So it's the same thing. They don't know you enough to know whether or not they want to bring you on board. So salary should not be part of the discussion. That's your job to do all that research and figure out, at least to get an idea of what that salary might come in at. Okay, Career Center, because I work in one, I'm always going to plug us as being the best resource. But because we do know our employers and we typically know, what they've paid historically to our students. I just wanted to go through a few different types of questions or a few different things that might come up when you're talking with recruiters or employers and talk through how you can kind of deflect, okay? So a lot of times, and recruiters they're more savvy than you guys are. So they have a way about this process and it can sometimes trip you up. So I just wanted to throw a few things up here that I've actually heard. So what kind of salary are you looking for? Okay, I love that question because my first response to that is a monetary salary. I don't know, US dollars. What do you mean, what kind of salary am I looking for? But they'll throw that out there. It's a very open-ended question. Okay, so here's a great way to respond to that. I'm really more interested in the people, the opportunity, and the job itself. I'm sure this will not be a problem for us. Can we come back to this later? And what do you think they would say? They'd be jerks if they said, no, we're going to talk about it now. Okay, so again, that technique, so important. Okay, what range did you have in mind? You could say, what does a job like this typically pay? Answer a question with a question. Even though you're always told not to, but this is a time where I would. What range did you have in mind? Well, I really had in mind a little more than that, but we're in the same ballpark. Okay? There's going to be times where they're just going to go there and they're going to really, like I said, get you into a position where you've got to start to reveal a little bit and kind of pull back some of the layers. But again, try not to throw out a figure too early in the process. Okay, this one is only for those brave at heart. So the employer, no, really, what's it going to take to bring you on board? Bob, you seem a little nervous about the salary offer. Is there any reason you won't be able to make a competitive offer? And that is when you probably should remember that second principle. Be prepared to walk away. Okay, but again, even with this here, I would say, again, it's, everybody is different in how they communicate. So if it were me, thank you. If this were me and they were kind of really just pushing the issue, I might say, I honestly didn't think this conversation was going to be so much about salary. It's a little unnerving. I just would assume that you'd be able to make a competitive offer. Is there a reason why you wouldn't be able to? Does that sound a little bit, it's the same thing, but I put my little LaTanya spin on it. Okay, but you do have to get to a point, you probably are going to get to a point at some time where you have to be a little bit more direct. And for a lot of you, you're negotiating, this is an entry-level job. For some of you, this might be the first full-time job experience that you've had in your life. And you're only going to be able to get so much more out of them. And I get that. But as you get older in your career, this skill of negotiating becomes so much more important